Gino's East is one of Chicago's most famous deep dish pizza places. They've been open since 1966. And there are still some people who don't realize Gino's East is here in LA now too. And let me tell you, it feels like you're in Chicago when you're in there. I know, I'm in there a lot. And during the week, Gino's has a happy hour from 3 to 6, Monday through Thursday. Get $5 drinks like Stella and Dark Horse Chardonnay. Also, $6 eats like spinach artichoke dip, garlic breadsticks, and a jumbo bowl of fries. There's so much great stuff on the menu. I always have a difficult time deciding what to order at Gino's. My go-to is probably the tavern pizza, cheese and sausage. You know what? Everything is my go-to there. Deep dish, the Italian beef, you name it. Everything on that menu is fantastic. Gino's East of Chicago and Los Angeles was named Best Pizza in the Southland by LA Times readers 2 years in a row. It's more than just a Chicago restaurant. It's one of the best restaurants in LA. Check out the friendly confines of Gino's East LA today on the corner of Coldwater Canyon and Riverside Drive, just off the 101. See you there. Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and Cracker Jacks. Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo, and I'm here with my wife, Christie.
Hello, hello.
So, the Hall of Fame voted for the Veterans Committee in the era of my dad's era. And I was hoping that Tommy John would get in.
I know.
He didn't.
I know.
And Dick Allen got in. Okay.
Okay, so remind me again of Dick Allen.
Dick Allen played for the Whites. Well, he played for the Philadelphia Phillies. That's where he became a superstar, and then played for the Chicago White Sox. He won an MVP. He was an unbelievable hitter. And he swung a 42-ounce bat. He swung the heaviest bat in the major leagues.
Okay, what's a regular ounce?
31.
What did your dad hit?
He was a 33, 31.
Okay.
Most people are that. It's 34, 31, 34, 32, 34, 30. Barry Bonds swung a 29-ounce bat.
Interesting. Now,
Dick Allen swung a 42-ounce bat.
Do you have any memories of him?
Yes, I do. He was with the White Sox when my dad got traded to the Sox. And the thing about Dick Allen, he was a superstar. Ronnie and I were enamored by him because he came to spring training on the last day of spring training. So he didn't even show up, right? And we would be at Comiskey Park because we were older, right? Ronnie was 13, I was 11. And we would be in the clubhouse at Comiskey, and Dick Allen would stroll in 10 minutes before the game. It would just be me and Ronnie in the clubhouse, and Dick would come in. Hey, boys. And I'm like, geez, the game's about to start, Dick. My dad said he was just an anomaly as far as he said that he saw Dick Allen. He witnessed it where Wilbur Wood was pitching a great game and Dick Allen made an error at first base, and he came into the dugout and a run scored, and Dick Allen walked up to Wilbur Wood and said, "Sorry, Wilbur, I'm going to make up for it on this at bat." And my dad said, "Oh, yeah, right." And he got up there, hit a 450-foot home run. That's my dad. This guy's pretty special. He was deserving of it, but it's just why it took him so long was he was a loner, man. Things follow you on a negative side more than a positive side. But as a pure baseball player, yeah, he deserved it. Then Dave Parker was the other one that got in. He was a Pittsburgh Pirate player. That he's iffy, but I think you look at that decade, and he was the main guy, and he won a World Series, and he took over for Willie Starr. So there's a lot of things there. But Tommy John, 288 wins, he deserves to be in there. But I got to say, why you don't get in sometimes might be because who you get along with. I'm sorry to say this.
Like what happened with your dad?
Well, my dad was more on a
journalist.
Yes, side.
Right.
Not a player side. I think Tommy might have rubbed some players the wrong way because Tommy's very opinionated. It's just my opinion. But he is at times. But he's good. What he say, but he's a cool guy. It's just you don't know who takes it the wrong way. Personalities dominate, and Tommy's alive, and they don't let people that much who are alive get in these veterans committee. I don't know why, man. It's really bizarre because they didn't let my dad get in until he passed away. So, Tommy, you deserve to be in, man. And I'm sorry that you're not in there.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe next year.
No, it's not every year. It's like every 3 years now for these veterans. Yeah, so he's got 3 more years. He's waited, man. He deserved to be on this one. It's too bad. Yeah.
Bummer.
They're saying something.
All right. Well, the other thing we want to talk about is Bob Manfred talked about on the Varsity podcast about this possible rule being discussed at one of the owners' meetings.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Golden At-Bat Rule. And this is where a team can choose one at-bat in every game to use its best hitter, regardless of where they are in the lineup. So if it's like bases loaded and there are 2 outs and it's bottom ninth, you could bring up your best hitter, even if it wasn't his turn in the order. Like, it would be a one-time replacement, not a substitution like a pinch hitter. So,
yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it's ridiculous because it's not baseball. That's then trying to invent something to be more exciting. It says it's going away from what the game is. But for the new people, they probably look, oh, we got our best hitter. They cheer. It's like a gladiator thing. We're going to get our best hitter up there. But in baseball, it doesn't work that way so much. Like he could have hit the inning before, and then he comes up, and then the pressure's on him. I think it hurts the team morale because baseball, one of my good friends said this to me about that rule that, baseball's meant to be like, yeah, you're going to face like 5 great hitters, but you're going to face a bottom of the order that, these guys get, you take away what they're supposed to do for a team, it kind of hurts the team. Like, a bottom tier hitter getting that big hit means a lot to a team.
Yeah, you can't have a gladiator if it's a team sport. You know what I mean? Like, you're all it's you can't single out somebody from the herd. Also, half the time in baseball you're failing anyways, even the best hitters.
Yeah.
So it's
no
totally
guarantee.
There's no guarantee.
No way at all.
It's not like
they're not pinch hitters anyway.
Yeah.
Like, so when they're thrown up there, like usually the star, it's like, people are like, well, I could bring up Judge. Well, we saw what Judge did, not putting Judge down so much, but
that's baseball.
But that's baseball, and when you're really put on the line like that, sometimes it's the lesser hitter that comes through in the clutch.
Exactly.
So you can't take that dynamic away from baseball. They're trying to invent these things because at the end of the day, it's competing with a lot of other stuff. I don't know. I just hope they do it more like how they've been doing it. They sped up they put a pitching clock in there. They've changed some things. They've made the bases a little bigger. They changed how many times you go to first base. They're moving the game quicker, which I think is great. Now I just think you got to take it to the homes a little differently, okay? Because when people go to the ballpark, we enjoy it. We do.
So this is our last show of the season.
Yes, it is.
Can you believe it? Season 2.
Season 2. We've had 2 great seasons. I got to say, thank you for listening, everybody.
We are so appreciative to all of our subscribers. Seriously, you make this happen.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. And our sponsors. It's been a great ride. And next year, we're going to keep going. And I believe it's going to be bigger and even better because we're always going to stick to story. We're always going to have 1 foot in Hollywood, 1 foot in baseball and the sports world. But next year, please stay in touch with Peanuts, Popcorn, and Cracker Jacks. And everybody have a great holiday season and a great new year. This is a cool show. I have Brigham Avery as my special guest. You'll learn a lot about him right here in a moment. And I got a surprise for the Cracker Jack. I called the Bat Boy during the Black Cat game in 1969 at Shea Stadium. So you got a good show here.
Enjoy.
Have you ever wondered how cool it would be to experience the life of a big league ball player? Well, at Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp, you'll enjoy the week of a lifetime, playing ball on pro-quality fields, being coached by and sharing a clubhouse with Cub legends including Fergie Jenkins, Jody Davis, Bob Denier, Sean Dunston, and Lee Smith. Imagine your first day at the camp at Northside. You enter into the clubhouse and see your locker with your nameplate and personalized home and away Cub uniforms, and then you see that one of your Cubs heroes has a locker right next to yours. No longer a fantasy. Your Cubs career is about to get real. At Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp, you'll stay in top-shelf accommodations and compete in a 10-game season that includes a playoff to determine the camp champions. My brother and I were on a couple of camp championship teams, and it got intense. It was great competition. And you'll have services of a professional training staff, and you'll need it, that's for sure. Plus a clubhouse attendant like the big leagues have. Picture yourself towing the rubber facing Ron Santo or Willie Wilson or Ron Coomer. Yeah, that's right. And when you're in the batter's box, you better get ready to take some hacks against big league arms like Mike Remlinger, Ray Burris, and Tim Stoddard. Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp is run by veterans of Randy Huntley's Fantasy Camp. Randy's a legend and will always be remembered for this gift he gave to baseball fans, to all of us. His legacy is in good hands. Northside Camp runs January 26th to February 2nd, 2025 in Tucson, Arizona. Roster spots are limited, so grab yours today. Go to wavelandevents.com. That's wavelandevents.com and click on Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp link for more information and to register. You can also follow Northside Baseball Fantasy Camp on Facebook. Sign up now. My special guest today is a sports journalist hybrid. He's a television producer and radio host, a writer, a stand-up comedian, actor, and business developer. He's the host of Hollywood and Ivy, a popular show on the Marquee Network. His grandfather was an entertainment mogul who began his entertainment business in Chicago over a century ago. His father continued the family business and expanded to Canada and Los Angeles, where my special guest got a front-row education in everything entertainment. It's a cool family story, and he's a cool guy with a great personality who I've gotten to know out here in Los Angeles. He's here in my home, face-to-face. I've only done that one other time. Brigham Avery, great to have you in the house today.
Jeff, what an honorable and wonderful intro. Man, that was really picturesque. And I'll tell you what, this is a beautiful setting. I feel like we're right back in Oak Park, where you were born in Oak Park, and that was, man, when I gave you that information, you really laid it out, Jeff. Thank you so much for all that. Yes,
you got it, man. It's great.
I wanted you to lead with Amway. Right? Double Diamond Amway was supposed to be the first thing, though, Jeff. You know, for God's sake, get it right. Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
Oh man, so
this is wonderful.
I got to tell you, man. I just love your energy. And I can't wait to get into your family story here. Now, your name, Brigham. I think you're the only Brigham I know. Is there any folklore to this? Tell me the story.
So my parents, they had a baby name book. I don't know how you got your name of Jeff, but they looked through.
Not hard to pull out Jeff. I don't think they did much studying on that one.
They were either going to name me Peter or Brigham,
Paul?
And they picked the normal name. They would always joke. So, but I like Brigham. It always seems to work, and they wanted it to be like a unique sounding, strong name, and I think it just always suited, I guess. And so
it does, man. Yeah, and you go by Brig.
Yeah. A lot of people call me Brig.
Yeah.
But in essence, it's always been unique. And I do stand up. I talk about my name in my act. And,
right on,
Brigham,
man.
I'm Catholic. It makes no sense. It's like an Israeli mother naming her daughter Butch. You know.
So anyway. tell me about, like, now your grandfather.
So my grandfather was a guy named. I've got obviously two grandfathers.
Yes.
During Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Yeah. I had a grandpa once. Two, actually. Oh, so did I, Jeff.
Yes.
Let's go on and on.
The one in entertainment.
So, yeah, there's one in entertainment, and I had one, actually, I'll just tell you quickly. His name was Frank Danielle, and he lived in Berwyn, and he worked in spices, and he sold spices to Italian beef packing houses and all. And
nice.
He made so Frank Danielle was my one grandfather. He was Italian. And then Randolph Avery was the other side. He was from New York, but came to Chicago, and they grew up in Westchester. That's where and he did a lot of work with Divine Infant, the church out there. And a guy that grew up across the street from my father was a guy named Joe Piani.
Okay.
And Joe Piani became the track coach at Notre Dame, and he was the longest tenured coach in the history of the school, the second longest to the baseball coach. He was there for 40 years, but that they all grew up in Westchester. And my grandpa would produce the Christmas parade every year in Chicago, and then he went on to Canada to produce something called the Calgary Stampede. But he was a huge Notre Dame fan, and I think kind of the enterprising reality of him going and creating shows and making that happen is kind of where I get a lot of that. And my father did the same thing. He worked a lot the Winter Olympics, the opening and closing ceremonies, and the medal presentation ceremonies in Calgary in 1988, and did sports things. They did the opening ceremony of the Saddle Dome, the Olympic Saddle Dome, and Wayne Gretzky was there. So a lot of that kind of sports ceremony. They produced. And so I had a real passion for the sports casting element of that. So I really love Bob Costas and Brent Musburger and really, a lot of, the Cubs, the Bears and all that. And that essence that was your father and Ernie Banks and the whole beautiful, beautiful palette that is the Cubs. So that really just made me a passionate fan for Harry Carey and the Cubs and everything they had.
Where did you fit in it growing up? Like what was your seat like?
Absorbing it, just like you absorbed your father playing baseball. I absorbed it and watched how they handled themselves and how they would communicate with people. And really my thing is the sports journalism, the communication, everything that comes between the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. So that what I'm really kind of saying is that essence of the 84 Cubs, 85 Bears. I really fell in love with that sports part of Chicago, and I had I love the fact that there was some winning,
right?
And I kind of wanted to make that, and I kind of found a way to do that in some just with some entertainment stuff, which is what Hollywood Night is.
And you are a hybrid, which is kind of happening more today for people, don't you think? I mean, you back 20 years ago, you're in one lane, right? And then that lane, though, might have dried up today, right? And you got to pick another lane. And long as you're still staying in the entertainment world and are on your path, right? I mean, it's the same thing.
It's interesting. You're so right. I don't know if your father ever said this to you, but my dad, one time we were watching A&E Presents The Life of Sonny Bono. And I don't know if you realize this, Jeff, but good old Sonny recreated his career lots of times, right? And my dad's like, see how he recreated himself? You know what I mean?
Right.
And he's just a short, he didn't make fun of him, but he's like, this is not George Clooney. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't have it, but look what he was able to do. So I have always been in the facet of not recreating, but also taking what you have and expanding it and making things. And I've always loved the example of, Happy Days came from Love American Style, that show. And then The Simpsons were on the Tracy Ullman Show. And a lot of what I built upon, like the show KBS you saw, there was a facet of that where I interviewed Joe Mantegna and talking to him just about being a Cub fan, a long-suffering Cub fan, made me realize that planted the seed, the creative seed for Hollywood and Ivy.
Right.
And what makes Hollywood and Ivy really flow and show, my man, is the fact that I ask everybody, I said, where were you November 2016 when the earth stood still? All that's lost was found. All that was wrong, was righted. And everybody, and the producer always says, I'm so glad they won that goddamn World Series, because he asked everybody that. And I will, Jeff, because that is the marrow. That's the whole, it's the suffering and then ultimately the healing. And that's kind of what makes that work. But it's the whole, the passion of that. That came from something else. So just, I love that.
Yeah, right on, man. I the 2016, if we didn't win that game, I will tell you, that would have been tough for, I mean, I don't know, it would have been, we'd still be sitting here today going, oh man, and now put 2016 on that list. And, you got it, Jason Hayward, you tip your cap to him.
Man, you do.
You know what I mean? You really do, because you hear that all the time on the inside, you're like, okay,
right.
Jason Hayward, man.
He had some value because he was such a disappointment to me as a Cub from the way he swung the bat, but he really brought merit in
we
that
all
moment.
thought he'd do better than a bat, but he did have great glove out there.
Amazing. Great base runner, too.
But I'll tell you what, I'll take that all day long. It's like, hey, he did right. He was at the right place at the right time, the right guy to be there. Yeah. And so we are now, thank God we have that one.
And they messed with his swing so many times, too, don't you think, Jeff? Just asking your baseball acumen. It seemed like they had he changed it 8 or 9 times, and how can you? It's almost like he lost his own self in that.
Brig, he had a hiccup in that swing, and I just think the hiccup caught up to him. He couldn't get rid of it, man. So I mean, it was tough to watch. I know he had some great seasons in Atlanta and a good one in St. Louis, but I think it had a lot to do with where he was just naturally didn't think about it so much. Then something happened and he couldn't adjust anymore. But anyway, moving on to that, man, I do want to talk about Hollywood and Ivy. Now, tell me some of the guests you've had on there. You've had a lot of celebrities on that show.
Yeah, I've been fortunate. Working with Joe Mantegna is a great thing. His wife and my mother and him went to Morton East and Berwyn, and so know him. And then my great aunt Teresa is his brother's godmother. So that they were all great friends. So we had that show at his place from KBS. And I realized that we could make a show of that. And so Len Casper introduced me to the people at Marquee, and he said, Brig, with all you do, they're looking for shows, and you do great there. So I had a great connection there and was able to tell them I'd like to make a show where I interview Cub fans, celebrity Cub fans. And so Joe was the first one, and they really loved that. And then after that, we had George Wendt and Gary Sinise and Gary Cole, and we had Bonnie Hunt, who's a near and dear friend of both of ours, a wonderful person.
Absolutely.
And we had Billy Corgan, and we had Bob Odenkirk, and
You got a
Dee
good
Dee
lineup.
Sweeney.
That's a good lineup,
and
man.
everybody wants to come on the show too. Vince Vaughn is confirmed to come on. Bill Hader's come on in the future, and
So that's going to continue next season.
And I'm excited to tell you that we're going to have Tom Dreesen live at the Comedy Store. That's in the plans. That's in the works to interview him live there.
Oh, great! That'd be great. Yeah, he was
so-
amazing, man. Yeah, thank you for bringing him to me.
He had a great time with you too.
Yeah, that was.
I
that was
knew it
something
would
else.
work too. I'm like, as soon as you had it.
It was great, man.
Yeah.
And so you also got another show called about the lights at Wrigley Field.
It's a documentary that Joe Montaigne and I wrote, and we're pitching it as a 30 for 30. That's the goal with that.
Okay.
And it's called Let There Be Light.
Gotcha.
And that's a story of. It's funny we talked about 69 and 84 just a moment ago, and that was kind of the two little blips between 1945 and 2016 of and there was a few in the early 2000s, like 2003, but those are the first two signs of life, of success in that era. And so with the lights, Jeff, the kind of story is that they didn't have lights, and quite frankly, they did not need them except for what would have happened in 69. We'll never know. And in 84, they actually got a playoff game robbed from them. So that kind of made it start to resonate that, hey, you need to think about making a change. And then ironically, the second year, the first full year they had lights, 89, they won the division, and there was night baseball in the playoffs. So it took some evolution, but ultimately I think they needed lights to win the series. But the kind of synonymous story of the Cubs' futility with the lack of lights is kind of a unique reality.
No, it is. There's a lot to say about that. I believe it hurt the Cubs because you gotta. It's really it's hard to acclimate from day ball to night ball. That's the tough one. They were the only team that had to do that every week they traveled. So that's your hours are different, and then they're going. So that has to take its toll.
What would your dad say about that? He would.
My dad never complained about that stuff, though, man.
No, not complain, but just he could actually communicate and say, "Gee, what we would just play during the day, and that was it. Nobody,
they knew how to regulate. Well, you got to understand my dad too, though. He's a diabetic, right? Not only did he have to acclimate just himself, but he's got to acclimate shooting his insulin in as far as night and day baseball. So that was tough to roll. But he didn't. My dad was like, nah, day baseball. Did he like playing day baseball, man?
Yeah.
I think it's you could say it's that, and they did have a hot summer in '69, but you look in '84. Those guys were great in day baseball,
Absolutely.
and I think I don't think that's you could say it, but it might have been. There's a lot of factors. I even said the wind blowing into Wrigley Field.
True, Jeff.
They make
so many things that are
Yeah, they say Wrigley that you can hit home runs all the time at Wrigley, but when that wind blows in off the lake, it's almost impossible to hit a home run.
And who would have counted? I mean, Steve Garvey was a great player. He had that swan song with the Padres in '84, where it was lights out. So there's just so many things that go into it. That's always great to talk about.
And are you Italian and Irish?
Yeah, Italian and Irish.
Okay.
And English and German. But I know, but the Italian blood runs so thick. So
it does?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Robert De Niro is only 25% Italian.
Is that true?
He looks 100%, doesn't he?
He does look 100%.
You know what I mean? So
I don't know. You're in between, man. I don't know.
People think I'll show you, but
you're right. I guess you're right. Up close and there you go. You got some Italian there. There's no doubt.
I love being Italian. I will say that.
So where do you see yourself going forward as far as in the broadcasting world and then your Hollywood world?
So I feel as though what we want to do with Hollywood and Ivy, we also have created a bear show called Hollywood and Hallis, which would be the same dynamic where I talk to Bear fans. And a lot of it would be the crossover, the same guests from Hollywood and Ivy, but just talking about the 85 Bears and the 63 Bears and some of those specifics. And then I'd like to do something where it's called Hollywood and Home Plate, where we would do all Major League Baseball teams, all 30 teams, and we would have a celebrity from each team. And if we don't have a celeb for that team, we would interview the best player. But there's so many cool stories, like George Clooney could talk about the Reds, Kevin Hart could talk about the Phillies, that just that dynamic. And I feel as though that could be kind of like the actor's studio, but it's the actor's studio for sports. So I really like the timeline of talking to somebody. Thanks, buddy. Like Joe Montaigne, talk about the first time you went to Wrigley Field as a kid, and use that anthology of communication to fast forward to the first time you threw out the first pitch as a celebrity, and talk about your career and entertainment and your career a Cub fan and how those coincided and kind of what they led to. You know what I mean? Like, I love it when it was, 84, yeah, I was doing Glengarry Glen Ross on, just to match what they were doing with their careers to what the Cubs were doing. That's kind of and I feel everybody wants to do that. And I'll tell you why. There's a picture, and I say this, I feel it's really undeniable. There's a picture of James Garner, and he's on the Raiders sideline when they were winning the Super Bowl in 1977, and he's standing there, and he's got his glasses on and his Raiders hat, and the look of satisfaction. He's like, I went through all those auditions to be Maverick, and I went just to get to this point. Like, he was happy as hell to be there, and the satisfaction of that. Like, every actor wants to be a first baseman. Every first baseman wants to be a base player. All that stuff. And I like to coincide and use the backdrop that are those two universes to tell my stories, Mr. Santo.
Yeah, that they do overlap, man. I mean, even like my dad's there, what they did on off days, they went and saw, on the road too. During the day, they watch movies, right? So they love the movies. The movie stars love the the baseball players, the football players, the athletes, and it has a lot to do too with their childhood, right? I mean, even with someone like Eddie Vedder, these guys. They remember like that's part of who they wore before they became who they became, right? And there's a tie there that is cool, man. It just works.
I don't know if you remember this. Odenkirk said this on my show, and I love. I'm not trying to interrupt you, Jeff.
No,
I love talking.
Man.
When you say things, it's like, Jeff, I totally agree. Here's how I agree on another level. That so Bob Odenkirk talked about, and I remember this in the summer of 1985, is that during the summer in Chicago, the Cubs played during the day. And you would go to the pool in the morning, like your nanny or whoever, your babysitter picks you up at 10. You go to the pool, you're there for the morning, you have lunch there, and then you come back at like 1:30 or whatever. You come home and you have lunch, and then you're sitting there in your bathing suit. It's like the 15th of July or whatever, and you just sit there in your bathing suit, and you're in your den where all the blinds are down and the Cubs are on, and you just and you dry off to the Cubs. You know what I mean? Maybe you'll be drinking Kool-Aid or Hawaiian. You know exactly what I'm saying, right? And that just feeds in that whole palette, the hue, all the colors, and it just gets in you.
It does, man. You're right about you're totally right about
the
that.
Ivy, the uniforms,
no, but everything.
the sky,
but it's summer too, right? Yeah. So as a kid, summer was like forever, right?
Damn
we waited
right,
for
buddy.
summer. We were free.
Yeah.
And so, you just everything it revolved around baseball. I mean, even the people that didn't play baseball liked watching baseball. Yeah. Little different today. It doesn't revolve like that. We're all not in one town square anymore, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. We were kind of all connected.
We sure were.
Even with movies too, we were connected. We all watched 16 Candles.
Absolutely.
There'd be very few people who didn't watch 16 Candles.
Remember the question at school is, have you seen Return of the Jedi yet? Have you seen Ghostbusters?
Right.
Everybody, that was the big question.
And the lines would be around the theaters for Jaws, and so it was that now it's like you don't know what person's watching which movie.
I know.
I mean, I don't know if people could even mention the movies that are up for the Golden Globes right now.
Yeah.
I can because we get the screeners and I love watching. That's what I'm into, right? And we that's what we do, so we watch that. But it's not a town square anymore.
Yeah, I know.
And so that's missing, and so it's almost kind of like that's where you see baseball fall a little bit because they're not having that same vision that we have when we think of baseball as a kid. Mm-hmm. That vision that you just said, it's great, right? It's part of the Kool-Aid. It's part of the sunshine. It's part of jumping in a lake or wherever and grabbing a wiffle ball bat.
Everybody would just watch the Cubs. They just watch the Cubs.
Yeah, and we pretend...
And specifically, I guess the Cubs because they were on during the day. And other teams played during the day, but the Cubs really more than I guess even though in the 80s, I would think they played like 40 or 50% more day games than like the Mets.
Oh yeah, of course, but it didn't get it till 88, so 84 was all in the day. But you're right, they played during the day, and then when GN went, even GN for us as kids, when my dad played, everyone in Chicago was watching Channel 9. They were watching Bozo Circus before the game started, I know. They're watching Ray Rayner in the morning. You're just tied in. So when you're going out, everyone kind of knows what's happening, and that kind of feel it's hard to grab that today. So now tell me about your comedy. In 99, you went to the Comedy Store and just went for it.
I took a class there. Sandy Shore had a class there. And that's Mitzi Shore's daughter. I mean, you know about the Comedy Store.
Of course.
So that was formed by Chicago and Sandy Shore.
Yep.
And Mitzi Shore's from Green Bay, if you could believe that. And they formed the Comedy Store in the 70s. It was Ciro's nightclub before that.
Yeah.
And they turned it in. And what was amazing about, I love the Comedy Store. I'm going to rant about this, is that they created the first time, Jeff, a comedy showcase of nonstop comedians. So in the variety entertainment world, there'd be a juggler, then there'd be a dog act and a comedian, and then but this was all straight comics, like one after
Yeah, oh, no doubt.
Richard Pryor, Tom Dreesen,
Oh.
Jay Leno, David, all back
Dude,
to
I
back.
watched all the
So
documentaries
she
on
started
Comedy
that,
Store.
which is amazing. Which
Yeah.
is amazing. So her daughter
Yep.
taught a class there. It's how she made money. And so she had a lot of funny people in that class, a lot of actually hilarious people. And I've talked to Polly about that. He goes, "You were in the class? Oh my God.
Oh,
Look
shit.
at all the people,
Right.
And so I was in that class. It was like a 6-week class. We would go on Sunday mornings and, write and work it out.
How'd that feel? So that's the first time, like, you never did comedy before.
Never. That was
You're
my
just
first time.
You're jumping in and saying, I'm going to take this class.
It's like hitting a home run at Yankee Stadium, your first at bat as a major leaguer, and skipping the minor leagues because it's the Comedy Store. That is the mecca of comedy.
Right.
So, and I was in the main room and it was jam-packed with all friends and people there. It was like a big recital crowd, but it was jam-packed. And, yeah.
That's tough. You crushed your first night there?
Yeah, and I used to have a hairpiece, and I talked about that, and I sang a song about it and all that, and I really
Did
got
you
people.
really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God, dude.
yeah.
So your first night at the Comedy Store, you crushed
First time
it.
doing comedy was at the Comedy Store, and I crushed it. Yes.
But in the class, they didn't think.
Well, so this was a class leading up where people would get up and just. This
And
happened
so they're
the
like,
last
"No,
time."
you're not
No,
doing it
she
the
was
right-
like that. Sandy was like, and then after that, I looked at her and she just threw her hands up and smiled. You know what I mean? It was just like
I got you. So
it
you
was
just had to
perfect.
figure out how you were going to take your energy and how you are and put this out there.
And they actually have to do some work. You know what I mean? Because if
you
you're
damn
naturally,
straight
you know
you
what
do,
I mean?
man.
So,
Yeah.
But I learned, and then I really got into the producing element of it. And I
Okay.
would produce these comedy shows in Orange County, in Huntington Beach, and Newport Beach, and in the South County of Hermosa Redondo and Manhattan Beach. And we would have people like Chelsea Handler, and we had just a lot of great comedians that came out. Bob Oshak is another guy. He wrote for the Best Damn Sports Show, period. Just tons of really talented, funny people. And then in Chicago, I work with Hannibal Buress a lot. So just the producing element of me going and selling live comedy and then hosting and, making some money and having a good time and that whole thing. I really enjoy that element. So as far as comedy goes, I do love comedy, and I feel like I'm building it. Like I could tell you some of my bits later. I don't want to, but that I've really kind of found my voice, and I do enjoy it. But I really like the producing aspect of it.
It sounds like it, man, because you got that business side to you that you're really out there hustling a lot. Like you put together a show for Marquee. You're putting together a show for the Yes Network too.
That's right. Yeah, Hollywood. Excuse me for Hollywood and Pinstripes.
Yeah.
Where Beverly Hills meets the Bronx.
Yeah.
So the great thing about this show is, Jeff, you can pivot. You know what I mean? And we're going to do a Yankees version of Hollywood and Ivy, where we talk to Billy Crystal and
right,
and Pacino and all those guys about that. So it's
man. And so that's kind of your gig, is that you take that business sense, you go in there. How can you also help some people in the industry?
Oh, yeah, man.
Because it's needed, man.
You got to be a good person, dude.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, and I feel this too. I know did you ever watch the Netflix thing about the men who made America?
Of course.
Right. What do they say?
Yeah.
They're all salesmen, right? The men who make the money because they have the relationships. You know what I mean? So you better know how to form, and not better, but if you know how to form and make relationships, boy, oh boy, does it simplify things.
Absolutely right, man.
Absolutely.
So where the lane that you've gone down, you're doing a lot of TV, you're producing a lot of comedy. Where do you want to end up?
I really like, and I like doing just more of what I'm doing, so I want to keep making episodes of Hollywood and Ivy. I want to do Hollywood and Pinstripes. I want to make the MLB version of our show, which would be Hollywood and Home Plate. I want to make the NFL version of it, which is Hollywood and Gridiron, Hollywood and Center Court, Hollywood and Center Ice, so for hockey, I want to make all those, knock them out one at a time, build a whole empire on that. And I want to make our documentary, and I want to keep doing stand-up comedy. And I guess I would maybe like to headline, but maybe work up to that, but I just feel like I like producing, and I like being able to get up and do 15 to 20 minutes. And I do enjoy that. It's also, I'll tell you something else. And I'm realizing as I say this to you, boy, this is really damn you, Barbara Walters. But that comedy, like, I know it's, you get up there and you get laughs, and sometimes you don't, and it doesn't matter, but sometimes it does take a toll. You know what I mean? Getting up there and just that. So I do like that, but it can be a street fight, and you even when you get them to laugh, it's just still the concentration, the energy. Like on Sunday after the show we did in Anaheim, I was just like exhausted. I fell asleep at like 3 p.m. partially because the Bears they just looked awful, but also I was so damn tired, Jeff, from going over my lines and, you know what I mean, over that and reciting my routine and making all that.
Yeah, man. So your first thing that you kind of come out of the box in is being a salesman with your craft.
Well, I would say, so I create
You're an independent dude out there.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, what I say about Hollywood and Ivy's, I created that show.
Yep.
I host that show.
Yep.
I produce that show. And I say this, and I sell that show. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean, man. And that's not easy to do.
No. And I have so much respect for Joe Rogan and Adam Carolla, guys like that kind of cut their teeth getting advertisers for that platform and putting that on, or whatever you.
Well, let's ease off on that. He's got a mountain of people, right? But I get it.
He had to start somewhere. He was the first. He didn't always have a mountain of people, you know.
But he's in. Those guys aren't different. He had the Man Show. I mean, that's a kind of a realm he was in.
Well, that's a big building block, and he was a Comedy Store guy and all that. Yeah.
So, would you want to be a host like that?
Would I want to have a podcast like that? Yeah. Honestly, I would love to have a podcast like that where I have that whole world of people, like where you're on it and people dip in and out. And
I got you, man.
I would love to have that. Yeah,
right on.
You say that. Wow.
I understand. And if you're a young dude coming up, right, what would you tell them?
I would say be your own entity. And I would say be very nice to yourself. Be nice to yourself on the inside. Have a good, calm inner monologue. And I would say, don't you quit. It's just because I heard this about tennis players, that the top 5% are the people, and they think like me. They're like, what's the next shot? Oh, yeah, we'll get him again. We're going to keep going. Yes, we'll get it right. Again, and then I'll get him the next time. I'm always thinking that. You know, it's not always that clear or that. I mean, it's not. I'm trying to be positive about it. It's not.
Yeah, no, I like it, man. I like what you said. Yeah.
Don't give up on yourself. Be nice to yourself and be your own entity.
I like that, man. To be nice to yourself is huge, dude. You have to be kind to yourself because it is very hard to get in an entertainment business and maintain.
Yeah.
Okay. It just is. Now there's jobs that you could, on a corporate level, get into, but what me and you have done in our careers, a little different. You're out there on a raft.
Right. Oh yeah.
And it gets tough, but you chose that, right? So now you got to hone it in, and going forward though, so you still don't know where you can end up. You don't.
I really like what it's funny. And they said to Seinfeld, when he was on stage one time, they said, "What's next, Jerry?" He goes, "I think you're looking at it." You know what I mean? So it's kind of like more of the same. I like to do those projects that we talked about and evolve.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. You got a lot on your plate.
I think that I honestly don't know if I want to have an end goal. You know what I mean? I guess just keep working on these and find new things along the way.
I mean, it's tough, man. It's changing so much. I don't even know, like, if you're starting, what's the way to start? You get into film school? If you want to be a filmmaker, is that the first thing you do? I don't know.
I mean, it's funny you say that too. This is just great. Is that what gave me a lot of benefits? I feel as though I talked about my dad, and my grandpa being able to create these things and to do everything and to communicate with people, and so. What the thing that brought me out to California is I went and worked at Disneyland, and when I was 21, and what I did is I had all these interviews set up for myself because my dad knew people there, and so I went and met with the director of publicity and the director of broadcast services, and what I realized during the day is that I could just have these nice conversations with people and maybe kiss their ass a little, but hey, oh, you went to Michigan, oh, that's cool, hey, great, can I have a job? You know what I mean? And just what I was able to do is to take counsel with these people. And what they used to say, Jeff, historically about the king, why the king had the greatest benefit is his ability to take counsel with the elders in the kingdom. So I found a natural ability to make that happen for myself. And then I went and worked for the Mighty Ducks in sports entertainment, the Ducks and the Angels in the late 90s. And a guy, his name was Ken Bamberg. He was a very nice guy. He was just an account executive, but we talked a little bit yesterday about Anaheim Sports Incorporated, and that was Jack Lindquist's son, Troy Lindquist, who is the president of Disneyland, and then Jerry McGee, his father Mike, was the athletic director at USC, and they built that organization. And Ken Bamberg was a guy that I knew there, and he said, "What you want to do, Brigham, is you want to just go in and make a friend. You just go, just call it make a friend." So I would say, make a friend, be a friend. That's what I am. I'm a friend. Be a friend, and I would say go take counsel with the top people, and you could do that too, being Ron Santo. I mean, just the people you're around, right, Jeff? You were able to take counsel with Ernie Banks, take counsel, right?
I didn't look at it. Yeah,
but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I know what you're saying. Yeah, you're putting in a certain way.
I would say that to a youngster.
Yeah, man.
Take counsel and be a friend.
It's weird, man, because Joey came into, he's in the film business, right? because you don't make it. I always making baseball. It's like when your dad was Ernie Banks, Ron Santo. It's like it's a larger than life thing. You're going to go to what attracts you because it's
Absolutely.
Hollywood's kind of the next thing.
And it's so funny just talking about that. Like I love The Natural. It's an amazing movie. And
it's one of my favorites.
It might be, in my opinion, the best movie. And it's just so...
Yeah, probably.
It says so much about men and women, too, just the different opinions of, Roy, are you going to be the best that ever lived? That's right. All she wanted to know is that, like a Black Widow spider, you know? And then it says a lot about men and women, too. Remember the end when Kim Basinger had that gun and she shoots the floor? I hate you. She hated him because she couldn't manipulate him. You know what I mean? That whole she shot.
Yeah, it was a good. It was a good kind of noir style to it too. So I like the darkness and the natural was very good. Dark and light was very cool.
But I think Hollywood and baseball just lends itself to so good to so many stories and narratives. And I think about like the big three were Bull Durham, The Natural, and Field of Dreams. Those three as far.
I would say The Natural is my favorite.
Yeah.
Top one I would say. Yeah, but the ones you just said
and Major League is so funny. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It really.
Yeah, there's some good. We hopefully get another one coming up soon. Called Blue Collar Famous.
That'd be great.
Right on, man. Well, Brig, man, good luck to you on everything, pal.
Jeff.
And one more thing I got to ask you. Have you ever been to the fantasy baseball camps?
I have not.
You know, Northside, it's taken over by Northside Fantasy Baseball Camps. It's because Randy retired, Hundred.
Right, yeah.
And he started the whole thing. And they're doing it in January, end of January, man. You might want to think about capturing something on film there.
Are you going to be there?
I'm going to be there, yes. I'm going to be there for like 4 or 5 days. It's end of January.
But where is that exactly?
It's called Northside Fantasy Camp, Baseball Fantasy Camp. It's in Tucson. Look up Northside. I'll give you the information.
Right. It was great to have Dreesen on and great to hear you guys talk about me and then great to just be here now because I love you guys. So
hey, man. All right. We'll be seeing each other down the road here for sure.
You got it.
All right, bud.
Happy trails to you.
All right. Thanks, brother. This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santo sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley. Crackerjack.
This call is being recorded.
Hello, Jim.
Hello.
Jim,
Hello.
Yes, this is Jeff Santo. You're my Crackerjack call for this episode of Peanuts, Popcorn, and Crackerjacks.
Oh, great. How you doing?
Hey, man. I'm doing great, thank you. I've been meaning to call you because your story's very interesting, and Scott Nelson gave me your number, and I let everyone know you were the bat boy for the Cubs in 1969 on the road. So you were in New York when the Black Cat crossed my dad on the on-deck circle, correct?
That's correct.
Oh my God, man! All right, I got a lot of questions for you, man. First of all, it's great talking to you. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm retired. I practiced law for a bunch of years, and I'm retired down in Florida. And that's my little puppy's got a cough, so I got to move to a different room here.
That's okay. I understand. I got 2 dogs that are getting old, and one's 13 and a half, and we love our dogs. So,
all right.
Well, let me ask you this, man. Now, how did you become the bat boy for the Cubs on the road?
Well, actually, it wasn't just on the road. It was at Wrigley also.
Oh, it was. Okay.
I originally got the job on Easter Sunday of 1968. And I worked with a fellow by the name of Ken Kamen that I went to DePaul Academy High School with at that time. And we started on Easter Sunday because Martin Luther King had been assassinated on what would have been opening day. And so they didn't start the season until Easter Sunday, about 4 or 5 days later after the funeral was over with and things calmed down. And so that's when I started.
Okay, now Now, were you practicing law at the time, and then you were doing this as kind of just a day job, obviously, because they played in the daytime?
No, I was still in high school.
Really?
I was. Okay. Yeah, I was still in high school because I graduated from high school at DePaul Academy in 1969. In June of 1969, and Yosh used to try to get one of the priests over there, Father Tom Croak, the dean of men, in other words, the guy that kicked your butt when you stepped out of line, and he wanted 2 guys picked out, and they'd work for 2 years, and then he'd go back and get 2 more guys picked out, and we did that. I took over that duty and did it for about 30 years when DePaul had closed up and the Bat Boys were selected from St. Benedict's High School over on Irving Park Road.
Oh, cool, man.
So I went over there and the principal, a priest over there, George Klein, who's passed away in the last couple of years, and I used to look over the names of some kids, and we'd pick 2, and nobody ever turned it down. I'll tell you that.
And now, when you're the Bat Boy, what was that like? Tell me about like '68 when you got there. What was that like?
Well, I remember I walked into the clubhouse on the Sunday. I think it might have been Easter Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. And I walked into the clubhouse, and I was told to be there at 9:00 in the morning, and I walked in, and I was at awe, because I had been a Cub fan since I was a little kid. And I walked in, and first guy I ran into when I walked into the clubhouse was Randy Hundley. And he shook my hand, said hello. Then I saw your dad, and he turned around and said, "You one of the new guys?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, welcome to the Cubs." And out the door he went. And, so I remember I was getting dressed to work the first game on the field, and I was getting in uniform, and Billy Williams came walking up to me, and I was watching the clock to make sure I wasn't going to be late getting out there. And Billy Williams walked up to me, and he says, "Hey, son, you new?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Did you get the key?" And I said, "What key is that?" He said, "The key to home plate." He said, you got to get the key. And I was thinking to myself, the year before that, the White Sox put a dumbwaiter in Old Comiskey right behind home plate. Came up out of the ground. And they had the extra baseballs in that dumbwaiter. I don't know who filled it up, but it always had, baseballs in it. And I thought that's what Billy was talking about. And I said, "Well, where do I get the key to home plate?" He said, "Well, you got to get down into the umpire room. They'll give it to you." And I ran down. There was only about 20 minutes left until the game started, and I ran under the stands. You probably were under there when you were a kid.
Oh yeah,
it was like a dungeon down there.
Right.
And I went down there. It was a big black door with white lettering. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And I knocked on the door. I'm standing out there clearing my throat, getting ready to talk to the umpire. The door opened up, and a guy by the name of Lee Wire, that was the biggest man I ever saw in my life. He was huge. And he came to the door, and he was putting his equipment on. He said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, sir, I need the key to home plate." And he said, "Who sent you down here?" And I said, "Billy Williams." And he turned to the other 3 umpires, and he said, "And this kid's a rat, too." And I was like, "What?" And he says, "There ain't no key to home plate. Get out of here. You're not allowed in here." So
that's hilarious.
So I'm standing there, scratching my head, not knowing what to figure. I said, I got a uniform on. Doesn't that count for something? And,
oh my God, Billy! He was a prankster, man. That's awesome. That's great.
Well, he was a lot like Ryan Sandberg turned out to be later on. I heard Rhino was a big prankster like that.
That's your. Yeah, he was.
Then I couldn't find Billy. Couldn't find him anywhere. And
he was out in left field.
Well, I don't know where he was, but he was avoiding me like the plague. And then the game started, and of course I went out into the on deck circle for the bottom of the first, and we were playing the Cardinals. And
good game to start.
Yeah, I think it was Bob Gibson pitching that day.
Oh, there you go.
And Lee Wire was umping the plate, and he called me over, and I didn't want to get too close to home plate because Gibson had a reputation of hitting anything that stood around home plate, and so I walked up. Lee Wire was calling me over, and he goes, "Who sent you down here?" And I said, "Well, Billy Williams." And now I'm figuring that the noose is coming tight around my neck. And so he says to Tim McCarver was catching for the Cardinals, and he says to McCarver, he says, "Hey, McCarver, you got the key to home plate?" And McCarver looks up and he goes, I must have left it in my suitcase." And now I'm thinking, here we go again, And so the inning was about to start, and I had to go back, and I didn't want to show anybody my face, but Lee Wire called me back between the next inning, and he told me that Phil Klein, the guy that used to be the chief of the Chicago Police Department, got suckered by Billy, and it was opening day a couple of years before that, and he was at third base, dumped the game at third, and he looked down the left field line, and there's Phil Klein walking heel to toe down the left field line. So he says, I whistled to him and told him to stop, take his hat off, and salute the flag. So he did, and he says, so I waited until the national anthem was over. I said, well, what are you doing? And he said, well, one of the Cubs said the left field line looked crooked. He wanted me to walk heel to toe and make sure it was straight. So that's what I was doing. And he said, well, which one of the Cubs did that? And he said, well, I can't, I really don't want to say. And then he finally said, who was it? And he says, well, Billy Williams, but please don't get me in trouble.
That's why they called you a rat, because you narked on him too quickly, right? Oh, That's funny. That's a great story, man. Oh, God, I love that. And just the characters you're talking about. You got Gibson, you got McCarver. I mean, this classic. And Billy. They all had to be in on that one. And so God, now get me to 69, when that road trip, the big road trip that you're going there for the last two games against New York, and you're up, I think the Cubs were up a game then, a game and a half, going to New York on September 8th.
Yeah, the Mets really were coming on, and I wasn't supposed to go out there with the team because I was getting ready to leave for active duty in the Navy, and that got pushed back a little bit, and I actually took a standby flight to fly out to New York because I figured it was it was going to be a really tight series, and I remember that I shared the bat boy duties that night with the New York bat boy, and and I just happened to be out there. I can't remember now.
So they let you come in and bat boy the game. You weren't scheduled, but you were doing a layover. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I just stayed. Matter of fact, I stayed with Yosh and Al Schuneman, and
cool,
I can't remember the hotel, but so I was out in the field, and your dad came up to bat, and all of a sudden the crowd started. Shea Stadium was a zoo to begin with,
right?
And the crowd started going goofy, and your dad had gotten death threats.
Yep.
From somebody because of something you said about Don Young. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I always got along really great with your dad, and I walked up to him and I picked up my towel and I picked up my bat weights, and I said, Ron, I'm moving down there. And he goes, where's there? I said, over there. I said, at least 20 feet away from you. And your dad just kind of smiled and said, what are you, chicken shit? Oops, excuse me. I don't know. But anyway,
no, we're fine, man. No, don't worry about that. It's clubhouse, basically. Think of it as a clubhouse, this call.
Yeah, well, you can imagine the look on his face.
Oh, that's classic. That you had the guts to do that right in that time. That's classic.
And I walked over, and the crowd got louder and louder and louder and louder. And I turned because the noise seemed to be coming from home plate, and your father said something. I don't want to repeat that, but he
say it. I don't give a shit. No, I want to know the word. Say it. Yeah.
He just looked down. And he said, "It's an effing black cat. We're in trouble now." And I looked around. And if you look at the old tape of it, I looked around, and all of a sudden I spotted it, and it was walking right towards your dad, and then changed course and started walking right towards Leo. And Leo was on the bench, and if you look at the picture, he was trying to hide his face, and I guess he figured that was the best way he's going to shield himself against the bad luck. And so he tried to hide his face, and Pete Reeser was going, "Shoo, cat, shoo, get out of here, get out of here." And the cat was just as direct as can be. Started walking right towards Leo. And then there were two FBI agents down on the stairs of the dugout that were following your dad around. Because I guess he got some threats at the hotel, and they were following him around. They were in their FBI suits, down in the stairs of the dugout, and they were laughing their butts off. I mean, they thought it was hilarious. I've never seen an FBI agent laugh.
They must have been New York FBI guys, because that's not funny for the Cubs. But
no, not at all.
No, really? Okay.
So the cat just took off, and I think there was another set of stairs at the other end of the dugout, and away he went. And then it was just a couple innings later where it was the famous play at the plate with Randy.
With Randy.
With Tommy Agee trying to score.
Yep.
And Jim Hickman threw the ball in from right field, right to Randy, and Randy turned around, and I could see it. I mean, he whacked his Agee right on the butt. Called him safe, and I think we lost that game 2-1.
Yeah, it was a tough one. And isn't that the game too that Koosman hit my dad?
I don't remember that.
He got hit that game on the wrist, and then Koosman went after him, hit him twice. And then he got taken out of the game that second time on the wrist. I think he hit him twice, but for sure he had 2 at-bats, and then he was out of the game. Yeah, you could look up the box score on that. So that was – he went on purposely, too. And I remember later, like after some time at Randy's early camps, one of the pitchers, relief pitchers, was there and said that we should have went after them on that time when Koosman went after Santo, and we didn't, and I don't know why they didn't either. Yeah,
it might have ignited the Cubs. It might have got the engine started again if they did.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why he said it. Yeah, exactly. And they didn't. I think they were just like psychologically, that's when New York seemed to be taken over. You know, the Black Cat got in their head. So many things. That whole Don Young game that happened in July 8th got in a lot of people's head, which was blown way out of proportion. It was one game, and they started playing good after that again anyway. So, but yeah, man. So you were there, and what were you there for the second game when Seaver pitched, and the next game on the 9th too?
I was there, but I don't think I went on the field that second day because I felt bad, as if I didn't bring him any good luck, you know.
Oh, wow, man. That's how tense they were, right? Even the bat boys worried.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What'd you think of that year? I mean, you were around there. What did you take from that? Like, why did they fail? Did you feel that at all?
They got burned out. You know, DeRocher he played the first stringers until they dropped.
What everyone did back then, Jim.
Yeah, well, they substituted when they had to, but Leo just, he played everybody every single day, and your dad with his diabetes and everything back then must have been, it was a hot summer.
He wasn't. Yeah, you're right. That was a hot summer. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. He never talked about the diabetes though back then. You know what I mean? So he kept that to himself. A lot of people, didn't even know about it, except a few players.
I walked in on him once. I had to go into the trainer's room in Schoeneman's. I walked in to get towels, and Al Schoeneman had them in the trainer's room, and your dad was standing there giving himself the injection, and I didn't know what diabetes was, and I didn't know what insulin was,
right.
And I thought it was some super potent, medication to make him stronger or something. And I looked at him, and I remember he just looked at me and he said, "You didn't see this." And I said, "No, I didn't. I hate needles. I didn't see anything. No, I'm out of here."
Did you tell me? It seems so suspect. Thank God that wasn't in the 90s. They'd be like, okay. But yeah, exactly, because he didn't want that getting out there, that, he had that disability till he told the public in, I think, 72. But, wow, man, that's some interesting stuff. I got to tell you, that's classic. And what'd you think of Leo, man? I mean, you work next to him. What did you think of him? Yeah, so did I, man. So did I. Yeah. Yeah.
He
so
was.
Did I.
The problem with Leo was he felt he had to put on this, tough guy, image, and he was always good to the bat boys. He was funny. He was, one time he was playing. They used to play rummy in the clubhouse all the time, and Holtzman and him used to scream at each other over one of the trunks. And that day, Leo looked at him and said, "I got you, effing so-and-so." And Holtzman looked at him and called him a name. And Leo threw down his hand, and Holtzman just turned pale. And he says, "Give me the keys." And Holtzman said, "The keys to what?" He says, "Your Cadillac." He took the keys from him and drove the car for about a month. And Holtzman had to show up every day getting a ride from somebody.
Oh, that's great, man. Did you remember my brother and I roaming around there? Running around?
Oh yeah. With the Banks twins.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the Banks twins and
with Jerry and Joey. Yeah, 69 we were around there a lot. Yeah. My brother's a little older, so he's 2.5 years older than me. I think I was 6 at the time. He was like 8 or 9. But I do remember that season. And how was my dad's Click in the Heels? What was that like for you? What'd you think of that?
I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
He was pretty for a big guy. He was pretty athletic. I mean, he did that without any effort whatsoever, and
pure excitement. Yeah, exactly. He was just so thrilled. Yeah, that's something else, man. Well, thank you for telling me this story. I've been meaning to call you for a while. Boy, what an experience, and what a time for you. And then you went into the Navy, and I think every kid should do that today. Be a little different.
Oh, yeah.
Grow up real fast doing that, man. God. So, and you were a successful lawyer after that, huh, Jim?
I don't know how you call it successful, but I made a living at it, and
that's
enjoyed
success,
it.
Man. Yeah, right on.
So I'm retired with my wife Poppy down in Florida now, and on the West Coast.
All right, Jim. Thanks again, man. Have a great Christmas. All right. Really appreciate
Same
you
to
being
you.
on. All right.
Bye-bye.
You take care. All right. Bye.
This Santo moment is brought to you by Onesti Entertainment. In September of 1969, Ron Santo started receiving death threats that continued for over a year. Some of them arrived on Tuesday, so they became known as the Tuesday Letters. Ron and his family were given 24-hour security, and the FBI was called in to find the person of interest. Ron was even taken out of a game at Shea Stadium and flown back home for his own safety. At the end of the 1970 season, the culprit phoned the Cubs and said the threats would end. The threats stopped, and he was never found. That Santoid was brought to you by Onesti Entertainment. Hey, thanks for listening to the last show of our second season. Special thanks to our cool crackerjacks, Scott Nelson,
Woohoo!
Jim McCauley,
Yeah.
Debbie Foley,
Hey, Debbie.
Sherry Matarisi,
Sherry.
Terry O'Brien,
Terry T.O.B.
Gary Tallman,
Gary.
Anne-Marie Piscule,
And Marie.
and Jim Yoschlegel,
Jimmy.
and Liz Rutherford,
Lizzie.
and Mac McPhillamy.
Mac Attack. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it for supporting us as Cool Crackerjacks. Hopefully, we'll get more team players next season, right?
Yes.
More Cool Crackerjacks. You'll get a T-shirt. And cool. This show is made possible because of them and all of our subscribers. If you want to support the show and be a cool crackerjack yourself, subscribe on our Patreon page. Click the link below this episode or go to the Patreon tab on our website, www.peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
Our long-term, you mentioned this, our long-term Cool Crackerjacks get a members-only t-shirt, so sign up now to be a part of the club. To get notified of the next episode, click the follow button or sign up on Patreon for free, because that's an option. You can sign up on Patreon for free, you get notifications when a new episode drops, or if we do anything like a live event or anything there.
And leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Please leave a review definitely at the end of our season here. We really appreciate it, okay? Please, please, please,
You know
please.
what's great about the reviews is it just kind of like lets us know like...
Someone's listening.
Someone's listening.
That's it, basically. And we haven't had one lately. So hopefully people are still... No, they are. We know you're listening, but please, that would help us a lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't hesitate to write. Give us suggestions. Tell us how you're liking the show. Email jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, tell us who you want on the show next season that is in, a certain arena that we can get. But you know what I mean? We'll go for it. Right?
You want to do your closing quote?
Yes. For my closing quote, I get a kick out of being an outsider constantly. It allows me to be creative. Comedian Bill Hicks.
Toodaloo. This Old Cub, the documentary about former 9-time All-Star third baseman, broadcaster, and Chicago Cubs legend Ron Santo and his lifelong battle with diabetes. Santo was the first major league position player to play professional baseball with type 1 diabetes insulin dependent. This Old Cub captures the spirit of a man and his will to achieve. Santo is the ultimate optimist and therefore the ultimate Cub. Buy the DVD at santofilms.com. We also have t-shirts and other merchandise. Go to santofilms.com or santofilms.bigcartel.com.